What's up, my wizards? It's Dev, SBMTG, YouTube.com, and I got some Wednesday Hour of Devastation spoilers for you. And there's a goodly number of them, because we saw all the Planeswalker deck cards, too. So, let me run through these real quick. And actually, for the Planeswalker deck cards, I'm just going to leave the graphic up, because they're Planeswalker deck cards. I don't think that really deserves any more explanation. Let's start with Nissa's deck first, because I think that she got lower-powered cards, and I want to save Bolus's for later here. We've got Avid Reclaimer, though, to start things off. It's 3 mana, 2 and a green for a 2/2 human druid. You can tap it for a blue or a green. And if you control a Nissa, you gain 2 life. Well, it's certainly no Lifespring Druid, and that's not seeing any play, like pretty much ever. So, it's just not a huge fan. It's probably good in the Planeswalker decks. Nice to have some ramp in that, but still, you know, not very exciting. We'll move on to Brambleweft Behemoth, which is also not super exciting. It's 6 mana, 4 and 2 green for a 6/6 elemental with trample, and that's what the card does. So we'll move on to Nissa's Encouragement right here. This is a little bit more interesting. 5 mana, 4 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library and graveyard for a card named Forest, a card named Brambleweft Behemoth, the thing we just looked at, and a card named Nissa Genesis Mage. Reveal those cards, put them into your hand, and shuffle your library. This is kind of cool because it tutors up 3 things. Like, it might cost 5 mana. It's kind of a lot, but, you know, maybe in Commander, even though, like, the stuff that it tutors up is not great. But I guess you could also say that it's a 5 mana tutor that goes and gets a Nissa and then like 2 other random cards. Like, as long as it goes and gets the Nissa, you're getting something cool out of it. So I guess there's that. But here's some of the cards in the Bolus deck. I think these are just a little bit better. Definitely. Here's Visage of Bolus right here. It's 4 mana for an artifact. It's rare. When Visage of Bolus enters the battlefield, you may search your library and or graveyard for a card named Nicol Bolus, the Deceiver, reveal it, put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle it, and you can tap it for Grixis colors. You tap it for either a blue, a black, or a red. Speaking of Commander, you know, it seems like if you're playing this Nicol Bolus in Commander, which you may very well be doing, then this is an auto-include, probably, you know. We like artifacts that fix our mana in Commander, all that's good, although 4 mana is an awful lot, but one that tutors up and helps you ramp into at least decent Bolus is nice. So, like, I kind of like this. This is like the one card today that I can definitely see seeing play outside of just these Planeswalker decks. Here's Zealot of the God Pharaoh right here, ZGP's 4 mana, 3 and a red for a 4/3 Minotaur Archer. You can pay 5. It's a lot. It's 4 and a red. Zealot of the God Pharaoh deals 2 damage to a target opponent. Okay, so, you know, late game mana sink. This would be pretty good in Limited, but we're not going to actually play it in Limited because it's not available in Hour of Devastation packs. Here's Wasp of the Bitter End to finish off these Planeswalker deck cards here. It's 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 2/1 Insect Horror with flying. 2 mana, 2/1 flying. That's not bad. Whenever you cast a Bolus Planeswalker spell, you may sacrifice Wasp. If you do, destroy target creature. Now, it's only 2 mana, so if you get this as your 2-drop, it's going to be a while before you drop that Bolus, and it's only got the 1 toughness, so how long is it going to stick around? If you're playing against the Nissa deck, though, it's entirely possible it sticks around all game, because that deck will likely not have a whole lot of removal. So there's that. But still, I like 2 mana, 2/1 flyers, and I especially like when they have any extra value whatsoever, so if you do get to that Bolus and you can make them sack a dude, you know, that's actually, or you can kill a dude outright, unconditionally. That's actually not bad at all. Like, I don't know if the card's not seeing standard play at all, but still, that's a fairly powerful effect for a Planeswalker deck card. But now let's talk about some, like, good cards. Sorry, had to talk about the Planeswalker deck cards. They are, in fact, cards, so I'm sorry the video is front-loaded with that, but let's get on to some good stuff here. First of all, Crook of Condemnation. Well, C squared costs 2. It's an artifact, and you can pay 1 and tap it to exile a card from a graveyard. You can also pay 1 and exile Crook of Condemnation to exile all cards from graveyards. So this is yet another colorless thing that any deck can play that just exiles all cards from all graveyards if you wanted to, which is pretty great. We asked for graveyard hate. We definitely got it. And it's sort of nice to have Relic of Progenitus kind of in standard. You know, give it the side eye when I call it Relic of Progenitus. It's not quite that, but still pretty darn good card. You know, if you just want to pick off cards from your opponent's graveyard, you can do that, or if you just want to stop it now, then you can exile all cards from all graveyards. So, not bad, and if it comes in out of the sideboard, it'll still work with a bunch of strategies like Improvise, or, you know, decks that want to run Toolcraft Exemplar and Vehicles decks and stuff. So, not a terrible card whatsoever. Definitely take it. We needed more graveyard hate, and we're definitely seeing it. Decent card. Here's a cool card. This is Hostile Desert right here. It's a desert. And you can tap it to add a colorless to your mana pool, or you can pay 2 and exile a land card from your graveyard. Hostile Desert becomes a 3/4 elemental creature until end of turn. It's still a land. Enter Sandland. This is Mr. Sandland right here. Having to exile a land specifically from your graveyard, probably slightly hard, but we do have cycling lands. We have the cycling deserts now. That's pretty cool. And we have ways to sacrifice lands or discard lands in Standard if we want to, you know. So I don't think this is too terrible, but I do think that it's the hardest to activate man land ever, and I don't know how much I like creature lands that are tough to activate. So there is at least that to cast doubt on it, but anytime we get a creature land in Standard, I'm pretty happy with it. Definitely going to try to make this work, and I can definitely see how it could. It's not Mutavault, you know, it's not going to swing every turn unless your deck is specifically meant to do that. And then this is great synergy with that and all, but I don't know. I'm still not sure. I'm a little bit on the fence about this. Usually creature lands are amazing, but again, it's not Mutavault, it's not Mishra's Factory, it's not Treetop Village, Fairy Conclave, whatever. It's probably worse than those. Here's an Aftermath card right here. This is Driven to Despair. The Driven half you'll cast out of your hand. It's a 2 mana, that's 1 and a green, sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. The Despair half, you'll cast this out of your graveyard. It's only 2 mana, 1 and a black for a sorcery, Aftermath. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. Is it weird if I kind of think this is powerful? I kind of do. Like, both halves of this are great. Obviously, you're supposed to cast both halves in one turn, but you don't necessarily have to or anything, you know? Early game, if you just want to get a couple of cards off your dudes, you can totally do that. And obviously, this is ridiculous in board stalls. Granting menace to all of your guys is great, and if your opponents are holding on to anything, they won't be, you know, after they get hit. That's great, and being able to draw a bunch of cards in board stalls is sweet too. It just looks like a good card. Now it's dead in your hand a fair amount of the time unless you're in very specific situations like big board stalls or you're ahead. The card is very good when you're ahead, but usually cards that are great when you're ahead aren't necessarily the best cards. So I'm just not totally sure about this. Like, the spike in me says this card is not good and will not see any play. But there are other parts of me that are like, man, these are really powerful effects at a relatively low mana cost, so who knows? Who knows? Let me know how you feel about this one, because I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I feel like it might be a trap. Might be a trap, but at the same time, the card doesn't look like weak or anything, and being able to cast both halves on disparate turns, that seems decent, so I'm not 100% sure that I want to count this out, although it's probably bad. But again, there's just something about it. We're getting into the big stuff now. This is Unesh, Cryo-Sphinx Sovereign. He's 6 mana, 4 and 2 blue for a 4/4 flying legendary Sphinx. And Sphinx spells you cast, that's hard to say, Sphinx spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Whenever Unesh, Cryo-Sphinx Sovereign, or another Sphinx enters the battlefield under your control, fact or fiction, more or less, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. First of all, is a Sphinx with a goat head. It's always fun to see. Sphinx don't necessarily have to have the same head. We've seen a lot of Sphinx with different heads, but this is a Sphinx with a goat head. This is probably not the best 6 mana 4/4 flyer we've seen this week. We just saw the Locust God, and I'm more intrigued by that card than this. But, you know, there's been a lot of Sphinx Commander players that are going gaga over this, although I think there may be better options, you know. Sphinx Commander, you got like Sharum or Sarum. You got like Hesperia, and those open up just more color options, and this could be in those decks. But I can definitely see why you want to make this your commander, you know. Sphinges, I think that's the actual plural of Sphinxes. Sphinges tend to cost a lot of mana, you know. So getting a discount of 2 mana on them is actually really, really cool. That's pretty intriguing right there. And getting a fact or fiction off of them is amazing. Every time you cast a Sphinx, including this one, that's great. I've seen people comment on sites today saying like, oh, it gives your opponent the choice. Like, fact or fiction is a card that sort of breaks the rule of giving your opponent the choice. You know, they get to separate them into 2 piles, but you get the ultimate choice over which pile you get. So, You know, this card is probably okay, although it's not going to see standard play. You know, there's no flash, there's no hexproof, there's no like special abilities like indestructible or anything like that. He's no recursion. You know, it's just it lacks all of the abilities that 6 mana cards typically have to have in standard. Although it does have going for it that something happens when it comes into play. It has a great ETB trigger that puts a few cards in your hand. So that's not terrible. Very likely that is not terrible. Although 6 mana, you can do a lot better in this format. Torrential Gearhulk, you got the Locust God. Ultimately, I'm not sure how good this is, even if it does make Final Word only cost 5. Check this out. Here's Hour of Glory right here. It's 4 mana, 3 and a black for an instant. Exile target creature. If that creature was a god, its controller reveals his or her hand and exiles all cards from it with the same name as that creature. Okay, so do we like this? I'm not really sure, honestly. I really want you guys' opinion on this because honestly, I'm on the fence, just like a couple of these other cards today. First of all, the text box is great. Imagine, the text box is not bad at all. Right now, we need to exile dudes, you know, Locust God, Scorpion God. We're going to see the Scarab God coming up soon. And all of those will have the ability that lets them come back to your hand when they go to your graveyard. All the existing gods from Amonkhet are all indestructible. So exile is pretty attractive right now. And I kind of like that second line of text too, you know. If you played with gods before, you'll know that sometimes you'll get a second copy of a god you already have on the battlefield, and you think, well, if they actually do find a way to deal with the god I already have out, then I just have another one ready to go. But until then, it's a dead card. That kind of sucks. But you are a little bit more secure in the knowledge that if they find a way to deal with your Ronus or your Hazoret or whatever you got out, then you'll just play it again from your hand the very next turn. Well, this card doesn't let you do that. It doesn't let you sit on gods just in case there are answers. And that's kind of important. It's also instant speed, which means that it could see one of or two of play in some control decks. You know, Blue-Black or Esper control, Grixis control. Could see some play, but, you know, we've still got Anguished Unmaking for the next few months. And that might be better, all things considered, you know, because 4 mana is not great. Even though it's splashable, 4 mana is really, really hard to get around when evaluating this card. You know, 4 mana is a lot. That's just so much, you guys. So I'm not 100% on this, even though you can cast it EOT. I'm just, you know, and we play Cast Out. Cast Out's 4 mana, but at the same time, Cast Out, you know, is still good when you're mana screwed, or when you need to search for a land, or when you need to dig for a counter at a weird moment, you know. I think that that's probably the best thing to compare it to, you know, and I'm just not 100% sure end of the day, especially if you're building Esper Control, that this makes the cut over a card like Cast Out. Moving on to the penultimate card of the day here, the next to last card. This is Reason to Live right here, which is a delicious cocktail at the bar I work at. It really is. But anyway, the reason half of it you cast out of your hand. This is a card with Aftermath. It just costs a blue. It's a sorcery, and you scry 3. Live is 5 mana. That's 4 and a green. You'll cast it out of your graveyard, and it's a sorcery. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you may reveal it and put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put that card into your hand. First things first, this is not like Aetherworks Marvel, like, at all. Like, people have been freaking out on various different websites today and just basically saying, like, oh, Wizards free spells. Like, guys, like, there are free spells, and then there are broken mechanics that allow for free spells. Like, Aetherworks Marvel was broken, you know. It comes down turn 4. Any deck can play it. Doesn't require as much energy as it needs to be able to activate. You can activate it in response to removal, or if they respond to activating it with removal, you still get its activation. It casts the card, so things like Ulamog matter a little bit more in that case, you know. You get that awesome cast trigger off of any Eldrazi and stuff like that. It's just this card is a little bit different. It costs 6 mana to make work. It only digs 3 cards. That's worse than Marvel right there. You know, it's sorcery speed, which is, you know, you play Marvel at sorcery speed, but the activation is instant speed, so worse than Marvel right there. 6 mana is not 4 mana. I've already mentioned that, but 6 mana is not 4 mana. So, like, and it's possible you'll whiff on it still. Like, I don't know, man. Like, the card looks okay and all, but it is not Aetherworks Marvel and free casting. I want to do an entire, like, 10 or 15 minute video on this, because it's kind of a thing now in Magic circles. Free casting is not the end of the world. Free casting is not the most busted thing ever. We just banned Ether Works Marvel because it is not a fair way to play free spells, you know. But things like the Expertise Cycle, totally fine, you know. They're not completely broken. They haven't seen that much play. They're not extremely broken cards, like at all. But so my point is that free casting is not horrible for the game if it's done correctly. And here, I think it's done correctly. And there are actually way more things about this card I'd like to talk about, other than the current, oh my god, free casting pseudo-controversy. First of all, I think that the reason half of this is actually pretty decent, dare I say, at least in standard. You know, we don't have Brainstorm, we don't have Ponder, but we do have this, and it doesn't draw you any cards, obviously. But just 1 mana to see 3 cards and fix draws for a couple of turns is desirable in combo decks and even control decks. You know, on turn 1, you got nothing better to do with your mana than cast this card. At this point, you know, you might cycle a Censor, but that's a dumb move. And on turn 4 or 5, you cast this, you fix your draws, which is actually great for control in the mid-game, and you'll still leave mana up for removal, counter spells, or even a sweeper. So, like, I think that the reason half of this is actually relatively powerful, even if it wasn't stapled on to a second card. Meanwhile, people seem to be losing that the live half of this draws you a card no matter what. Even if it's not a creature, you know, you get a land or a spell or another reason to live, you can just put it in your hand. And 5 mana is a lot at sorcery speed to draw a card, but at least it does that. I don't know, it's just like nobody's pointing that out. But if it does put a creature directly onto the battlefield, that's pretty good. You still get any ETB triggers, but you don't get any cast triggers. And yeah, you can put an Ulamog onto the battlefield, but all I'm saying is it's a lot slower, and you don't see as many cards as Aetherworks Marvel, and you don't get the cast trigger. So I'm pretty sure that's fair. But I saved this one for last. This is Angel of Condemnation right here. It's 4 mana. That's 2 and 2 white for a 3/3 Angel with flying and vigilance. You pay 3, that's 2 and a white, and you tap it. Exile another target creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And you can also pay 3, 2 and a white again, and tap it, and exert Angel of Condemnation to exile another target creature until Angel of Condemnation leaves the battlefield. So I'm not sure if I like this or Eldrazi Displacer more, but it's cool that we'll have a pseudo Displacer after Displacer rotates in late September, you know. So I think that that's awesome that we'll have another blinky, flickery creature. You know, I love flicker effects a lot, especially with all the cool ETB triggers that we see in Standard right now. It's just awesome to have another creature like this. And I also like O-ring creatures, you know, things like Fairgrounds Warden and such, Fiend Hunter. So this looks really good for that reason. It's basically a Banisher Priest when you want it to be if you exert it. So that's awesome. If they can't deal with it, you can hit multiple creatures over the course of a few turns with it. That's super sweet. It's got Vigilance, so it can swing in and then like exile a blocker if it needs to. Or it can swing in and then next turn when your opponent goes to swing, it can exile an attacker or something like that. Just a lot of flexibility on this card, guys. And it can also, like, if you wanted to, it can tap and then, you know, exile one of your guys. It comes back in at the end of turn. You'll get an ETB trigger, and that guy will be left up on defense so he can block when your opponent goes. Like, there's just a lot of awesome things this card does. Like, people might just say, oh, it flickers creatures and it exiles guys, you know, but no, so much flexibility in the way you can play the game if you have this card out. That said, 4 mana 3/3 flyer, not a huge fan of that. Although it does get a second ability in Vigilance, it just doesn't really block anything in the air very well. Although it can just exile those things, you know. But up against Avacyn or Heart of Kiran in a dry run, you know, it's going to lose every time. But again, luckily it can just exile stuff, so that's cool. But, you know, it doesn't do anything the turn it comes into play, and for 4 mana, you probably want it to. And at 4 mana for the next few months, in white, you've got Gideon, so, Anointed Procession. There's, like, other good 4-drops that you might play over this, is all I'm saying. But the amount of flexibility present in this card is ridiculous, and if you want to build a deck that flickers stuff, this is pretty good. But I'm tapped out for now. That's all the spoilers for today, so far at least. If I missed anything, let me know. Let me know which cards you like the most here. And if I loved a card that you hated, I want to know about that too. All the comments. Just let me know how you feel, guys. There's other stuff you can do if you want to. You know, you can hit thumbs up if you like the video. You know, liking the video if you like the video. Common sense. You can also follow us on Twitter at SBMTG Devs. You see all my ramblings. And you can know when we put out videos. Another way to do that is to subscribe if you're new. You can hit the bell for the notifications. There's lots of ways to know when we put out videos. And you want to know that because you want the spoiler videos. You want the deck techs in just a couple of weeks here, you know. Or at least I hope you do. I hope you do. You can also check us out on Patreon if you're so inclined. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. It's patreon.com/SBMTG. And with that said, I'm pretty sure I'm done with the YouTube stuff. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Julie. Julie, baby. Oh, goodness. Oh, was that just a sweet baby?